Hello and welcome back to Time Wizard Throwbacks, the show where I feature a legacy format each episode to give you a look into how it operates and what the meta looks like. Today we are returning to GOAT once again. While I could show you some meta chaos brew or some really powerful toolbox, hear me out here. I kind of want to showcase one of my personal favorite decks of this format. This is Skull Servant.
Spooky, scary skeletons and shivers down your spine.
So a quick clarification. When I say Skull Servant, I mean that quite literally. This deck is based around Skull Servant. However, you will not be using Skull Servant every single match just because it's not as consistent as I would like it to be in GOAT, but it is still really fun to pull off. The basis of this deck is actually zombies, as you can tell by the multiple zombie type threats in here, but the highlight is Skull Servant, and more specifically, King of the Skull Servant. Breaker is here for his 1900 attack body and back row breaking ability. King of the Skull Servants is where the deck shines. So, King of the Skull Servant gains 1000 attack for every copy of King of the Skull Servants or Skull Servant in your graveyard. This means that he has a maximum attack value of 5000, making him the highest attack of all relevant monsters in GOAT format. You will almost never see him reach that height because in order to get there, you kind of have to sacrifice common sense, but it is funny when it happens. Usually you'll see him hover around 2000 to 3000 when he becomes relevant. 3 Mystic Tomato. While Mystic Tomato cannot summon out King of the Skull Servants, he can summon out Skull Servant from deck, which makes him a useful tutor tool. 3 Pyramid Turtle. Pyramid Turtle can actually reach every single one of your relevant zombies in the entire deck, including Vampire Lord, who will be your usual go-to. Most people are too scared of Vampire Lord to deal with him in a relevant manner before Skull Serpent comes down. 1 Sangan. Sangan is Sangan. 1 Sinister Serpent. Sinister Serpent is Sinister Serpent. 1 Tribe Infecting Virus. Tribe Infecting Virus actually pulls double duty here as both monster removal via Sinister Serpent or as a way to get your Skull Servants into the graveyard very reliably. 1 Tsukiyomi. Tsukiyomi just outs so many things in this format that it's very useful. 2 Vampire Lord. Normally people would play a split between Ryu Koki and Vampire Lord in this particular slot, but I actually really like Vampire Lord in this deck, and he's just overall an amazing card. 3 Skull Servant. You need to play Skull Servant to fuel the Skull Servant King. 2 Book of Life. You don't play 3 here because Book of Life is not online as much as you would probably want, but it is very useful for getting Vampire Lord back onto the board, Pyramid Turtle back onto the board when you need him, and then King of the Skull Serpent as well. 2 Creature Swap. You're playing a lot of dead bodies in your deck. You want to at least have some way to leverage them when they're not fully online. Delinquent Duo, Graceful Charity, and Heavy Storm do not need explanation. 3 Metamorphosis. Once again, you are playing a lot of dead bodies, specifically level 1 dead bodies. Thousand Eyes Restrict is extremely accessible in this deck, as you will probably see in the games. Mystical Space Typhoon, Pot of Greed, Pre-Mat, do not need explanation. Scapegoat. Scapegoat is still really powerful in this particular deck because we're so focused on level 1s. Being able to block up to 4 attacks or summon Thousand Eyes Restrict on a whim is very powerful. The only problem with Scapegoat is you can't tribute him for the tribute summon of a Vampire Lord if that gets stuck. Snatch Steal, Call, Mirror Force, Ring of Destruction, and Torrential Tribute all do not need explanation. The only really relevant monsters in your extra deck here are going to be Thousand Eyes Restrict because you're playing a bunch of level 1 bodies, Reaper on the Nightmare for the occasional instance where you need a body like that and you can sacrifice a Vampire Lord, and Dark Bolter the Terrible if you need a specific interaction. With that said, the deck is set, let's get into the games. Our first match is against Warrior Toolbox. We look at our hand and it's not the best, but we have Graceful Charity so we can probably figure it out. We're going first, we'll draw for turn into Breaker the Magical Warrior. We'll fire off the Graceful Charity, drawing into Tribe, Scapegoat, and Skull Servant. We'll immediately pitch off the Skull Servant in the MST, as we have Heavy Storm, so we don't really need it. We'll then proceed to T-Set and pass. He'll draw for turn, go to main phase 1, summon DD Warrior Lady, and attack into our Mystic Tomato. We'll give him the opportunity if he wants to banish, and he'll take it. He'll then proceed to end phase and pass, kind of odd. So we'll draw for turn, go standby main, normal summon our Breaker, get the counter, and swing in for 19, after which we'll pass for turn. He'll draw for turn here, go standby main, fire off the Graceful Charity. He discards 2 ninjas, which shows me he's on a Warrior Toolbox. He'll then proceed to T-Set and pass. We'll draw for turn into King of the Skull Servants. We'll go main phase 1, break his back row, and then tribute off our Breaker to normal summon Vampire Lord. We'll then swing in with Vampire Lord to get over his monster. He'll reveal the Sangan and get the Sangan search here. searching for Donzalug, which signals to me he has a way to remove Vampire Lord. He'll draw for turn, normal summon the Donzalug, then he'll banish a Light in the Dark for BLS and banish our Vampire Lord with priority. He'll proceed to battle phase and swing in with Donzalug, but that'll meet our Scapegoat so we can actually block the attack here. He'll actually choose to not redeclare, proceeding to main phase 2, setting 1 and passing. We'll draw for turn here into Skull Servant, go standby main, we'll fire off the Heavy Storm here to remove the back row, and then we'll fire off the Tribe Infecting Virus, discarding our newly drawn Skull Servant to clear the board of all warriors. We'll proceed to swing in with our 1600 Tribe Infecting and then pass the turn. He'll draw for turn here, proceed to set a back row, summon up his Exiled Force, go into battle phase so he can clear up at least one of these tokens, and then he'll Exiled Force us in main phase 2 to remove the Tribe Infecting Virus. He'll then proceed to pass the turn. We'll draw for turn here into Tsukiyomi. We'll go main phase 1, and then normal summon our King of the Skull Servants, who currently has 2000 attack. We'll then proceed to swing in for 2k, and he will surrender. Our second match is against a Water Toolbox. This is a pretty solid opening, but not the best. He'll draw for turn here, set a monster, set a back row, and pass the turn. We'll draw for turn here into King of the Skull Servants. We'll proceed to just T-set as well and pass. He'll draw for turn, go to main phase 1, MST our back row in the main phase, which is kind of odd. We'll chain with the Scapegoat here and get our 4 tokens up. He'll then proceed to normal summon Tribe Infecting Virus, discard 1, and remove all of our tokens that we just summoned. That is unfortunate. He'll then flip up his Nightmare Penguin, which will allow him to bounce our Tomato back to hand, and then he'll go into battle phase and swing in for 11 and 18. He'll then proceed to pass the turn after that. We'll draw for turn here into Skull Servant, go standby main, normal summon our Skull Servant, and then proceed to metamorphosis our Skull Servant into Thousand Eyes Restrict. Using Restrict, we'll be able to take Tribe Infecting Virus and attack over the Nightmare Penguin, after which we'll pass the turn. He'll draw for turn here, go standby main, set a back row, and pass the turn. We'll draw for turn here, go standby main, we'll tribute off our Thousand Eyes Restrict for Vampire Lord. That will meet a Torrential Tribute, which means we get the Vampire Lord back next turn. We'll then just proceed to set 1 and pass. He'll draw for turn here, go standby main, normal summon his Mermaid Knight, and proceed to swing in for 15. We'll just choose to let that go through here. He'll go main phase 2, set a back row, and pass the turn. We'll draw for turn and then standby, get our Vampire Lord back to the board. We'll proceed to main phase 1 here, normal summon our Pyramid Turtle, and proceed to creature swap it over to the opponent so that we can get his Mermaid Knight. We'll then proceed to the battle phase and walk over Pyramid Turtle with Mermaid Knight, triggering that Pyramid Turtle to summon another Vampire Lord from the deck. This will allow us to swing in direct for 4,000 with our 2 Vampire Lords and rip 2 spells out of his deck for free, after which we will proceed to pass the turn. He'll draw for turn here, go standby main, activate the Pot of Greed to get a free draw 2. He'll proceed to normal summon Abyss Soldier, and with priority will declare its effect on our Vampire Lord. It allows him to discard water and return it to hand, which is kind of unfortunate for us. He'll then proceed to banish 2 waters from his graveyard so he can summon up Fenrir. Kind of an odd choice, but understandable. He'll then go into battle phase, flip up Return from the Different Dimension, paying half of his life points to bring back the monsters he just banished, which includes Nightmare Penguin, which gives his board a 200 attack boost. He'll then proceed to attack into Mermaid Knight with Fenrir and eat the Mirror Force and surrender the duel. Our last match is against Chaos Control. This opening looks solid because we got Graceful and King of Skull Servants. It's going to be interesting to see how this one plays out. Our opponent's going to go first. They'll draw for turn here, go to main phase 1, fire off Graceful Charity, draw 3, and then discard 2, discarding a Sakuretsu and a Reinforcements. He'll proceed to set a monster, set a back row, set another back row, and pass the turn. We'll draw for turn, go to main phase 1, fire off our own Graceful Charity, and draw 3, discarding the Vampire Lord and the King of Skull Servants. We'll then proceed to Heavy Storm, which we top decked off the Graceful here, and he'll chain his Scapegoat so he gets the token still. We'll proceed to normal summon Mystic Tomato and walk into one of the tokens. In main phase 2, we'll set the Call of the Haunted, set the Torrential Tribute, and pass the turn so we can potentially get our Vampire Lord back. He'll draw for turn and fire off a Heavy Storm in main phase 1. Unfortunately, Vampire Lord's revival is only if it's destroyed by an opponent's card effect. He'll proceed to Upstart Goblin afterwards, getting another card here, and then Delinquent Duo, the last 2 cards out of our hand. That is unfortunate. He'll proceed to flip up a Magician of Faith and get his Graceful Charity back, so he's going to be able to fire off Graceful Charity yet again here. Draw another 3 cards and then discard 2. He'll discard a Lightning Vortex and a Pre-Mat off that, which is understandable. He'll then proceed to normal summon Exiled Force to get our Mystic Tomato off the board. So just like that, he has completely cleaned us out of resources. We're going to have to see what we can do to recover. He'll proceed to pass turn after that. We'll draw for turn into Pot of Greed. That'll do it. We'll fire it off immediately, getting a Pyramid Turtle and a Tribe Infecting Virus. We'll then proceed to normal summon summon the Pyramid Turtle and then swing over the Magician of Faith here so we can get some damage in. Afterwards, we'll pass the turn. He'll draw for turn here, go standby main, and then normal summon Tsukiyomi to flip our Pyramid Turtle face down, following it up with a Nobleman, a Crossout. Are you kidding me? He'll proceed to battle phase and swing in for 11 with Suk, and then pass the turn after that, Suk returning to hand. We'll draw for turn into Mirror Force here. That's pretty solid. Unfortunately, though, Suk could deal with Tribe Infecting Virus, so we're just going to set the Mirror Force and pass. He'll draw for turn here, go standby main. Normal summon is Sangan, and then proceed to run in for 1,000. We'll just have to take it. He'll pass the turn after that. We'll draw for turn into Skull Servant. That's actually pretty decent here. We'll normal summon Tribe Infecting Virus and fire it off, discarding the Skull Servant to clear out all the goat tokens. We'll then proceed to battle and walk over the Sangan. He'll get the Sangan search off of this, grabbing a Sinister Serpent. That'll be really useful for him later. I'll proceed to pass turn after that. He'll draw for turn here, go standby main, set a monster, and pass. I'm assuming here it's a Sinister Serpent, but it seems like I am wrong. We'll go draw for turn, standby main, proceed to battle, and walk into the Magician of Faith. Oh boy. With Magician of Faith, he's going to recur Graceful Charity. For the third time this game, he'll be able to Graceful Charity. That's really unfortunate. We'll pass turn after that. He'll go draw, standby main, and then fire off the Graceful Charity, drawing 3, discarding Sinister Serpent and Gravekeeper Spy. He'll then proceed to normal summon Breaker the Magical Warrior, get the counter. He'll then pop our back row and then proceed to crash his Breaker into our Tribe Infecting Virus. He'll then go to main phase 2, set a back row, and pass the turn. We'll draw for turn here into Metamorphosis, go standby main. There's not really much we can do, so we're just going to pass the turn back. He'll draw for turn, go standby main, and he'll proceed to Call the Haunted, bringing back his Sangan yet again. He'll then proceed to normal summon Gravekeeper Spy and swing in for 22 here. That's actually pretty solid. He'll then pass the turn afterwards. We'll draw for turn here into Book of Life. That's really powerful. We'll go to main phase 1 and proceed to fire off that Book of Life, bringing back our Vampire Lord and banishing his Sinister Serpent that he forgot to add back to hand last turn. We'll then proceed into battle, swing over the Gravekeeper Spy so we can clear that out. And then with Vampire Lord, we'll call Spell, forcing him to send an Upstart Goblin from deck to grave. We'll then proceed to pass the turn after this. He'll draw for turn here, go standby main. He'll normal summon DD Warrior Lady. Of course he will. He'll run it into Vampire Lord. He'll be able to banish the Vampire Lord, but Vampire Lord will also rip another spell out of his deck. He'll proceed to dump a Metamorphosis here, kind of understandable. He'll then swing in with Sangan for 1,000. Afterwards, he'll pass the turn. We'll draw for turn here into Delinquent Duo, go standby main. Delinquent Duo now is probably the best chance we're going to get here because we need to keep him from going into a Chaos Monster. We're going to hit the far left, getting a Magical Merchant out of his hand, not the best, and then he'll discard Tsukiyomi as his choice. We'll then pass turn afterwards. He'll draw, standby main, set 1, summon a Tribe Infecting Virus, and swing in for 26. It tells me if we have some way to clear his board here, we are in good shape. We'll draw for turn into Pyramid Turtle. That'll do it. We'll Snatch Steal for his Tribe Infecting Virus here. We'll then proceed to go to battle, swing our Tribe Infecting Virus over a Sangan for 600, and he is actually out of search targets for Sangan, so we just gotta pray he doesn't get a good top deck. We'll set the Pyramid Turtle and pass. He'll go to main phase 1, proceed to banish a Light and a Dark, and it's BLS. That's unfortunately the game. So we're back with the list. Probably something you notice very immediately with those games is that Skull Servant, unfortunately, is not consistent enough to be our focus on the game plan. We really rely on Vampire Lord for a lot of our damage output and just general turn-to-turn shenanigans, so we're really just playing King of the Skull Servant for the laughs. Realistically, you could fine-tune this deck by removing the Skull Servant package and going more into the zombie package, but I just personally love it. The pros: it is really, really funny when your King of Skull Servants gets big. I understand that the highest value that you guys saw there was 2,000, but he can get really big really fast if you're actually playing into that. 2. Vampire Lord is a house. I'm sorry, there's very few ways that you can actually reliably remove this guy, and even if you do, there's a strong chance he's coming back because of all the grave recursion we have. 3. Pyramid Turtle is one of the best recruiters in the game, bar none. The fact that he can actually access you a 2,000 body is really powerful. You can always do creature swap shenanigans too to make sure that you get out a Vampire Lord reliably. And the cons: because this is a Skull Servant brew, it's going to be inconsistent. You're going to have hands where you brick on your Skull Servants. You're going to have hands where you cannot get King of the Skull Servant online. Hopefully, though, the fun that you have with this deck outweighs its very obvious flaws. Again, this is a deck to play if you want to have fun. This is not necessarily a competitive brew and should not be taken as such.